Hi there once again to all of you, once again from inside the cabin of the car after a reasonably long time. Well, as they say that 80% of the work takes 20% of the time to complete. But then the remaining 20% of the work, it takes the rest of 80% of the time. And the weeks gone by, we are going to tell you where that 80% of the time has gone to finish how much of the remaining 20% of the work. So let's begin with what has changed inside the cabin of the car. To begin with, we now have the LED panel, which is a 5 full color LED, and it can show all the important information in a single glance. Then we have finally the piano black finish of the cubby hole cover plate. It has got the dial integrated in it, and the colors go together in the same theme, and all these go very nicely with the rest of the piano black finish of the car. And as you already know, this does not obstruct the use of the cubby hole, it simply works as a cap for the same. Next up, the installation of NexCruise has become really easy. It is now sitting right here under the dashboard, and it is connected via extension cables from the VCU port and the pedal. It is also now possible to bypass the NexCruise using a physical bypass connector without having to undo all of the installation. Next important change is the OBD cable of the unit itself. This is what we had finalized at the time of the October event. This particular way, you can see that the wire is coming along the OBD connector, and what was really happening was that this was not really sitting well inside the car itself. So basically what was happening was, as you can see, it is coming this way out. So when we would put the cover like so, it would put a pressure on this connector, and it sometimes was coming loose in certain cases. So now what we have done instead is replaced this with this 90-degree angled OBD connector. So now you can see that it can fit very comfortably inside, and at the same time it does not exert any unwanted forces when we are putting the cover plate back again like so. We also had to decide to scrap the entire lot of these cables that we had procured, but well, it goes to make the product perfect. So now let's take the car for a spin. This is our regular mode where the NexCruise, although it is there, but it is not engaged, the cruise is not engaged, and it drives like normal. And the panel simply shows the first LED glowing in white. That tells you that it is working normally and that Bluetooth is not connected. So when the Bluetooth is connected, it's connected with the app on the phone, this will glow blue. We are going to talk more about the status and indicators in a later video. But anyway, this is how it goes. So we are basically going to hit a highway so we can show you the cruise functionality. So we are driving down on the National Highway 8, and now let us engage the cruise. So I'll do that by the regular drill, pressing the dial. Speed is approximately around 50 kilometers an hour, and I press the dial and I've engaged the cruise, and it is on now. I can see that the green LED is over there, which indicates that the cruising is engaged. It's rolling around fine, and now I can also accelerate, and cruise will not exit, and I can let go of the accelerator pedal once I've done my overtaking, and it comes back on my original cruising speed. Next up, I can apply brakes so that the cruise exits and it's falling down, the speed is coming down, and now I want to resume the cruise, and I do that by long pressing the dial for about 2 seconds, and now I can see that the speed is now gradually going back to my cruising speed of around 55 kilometers an hour. The energy consumption is under fully under control, it is not zooming past, it is not over accelerating, it is like very gradually going back to my cruising speed of approximately 55 kilometers per hour. Now it has reached there and the energy graph has gone back to 0, and it is now simply cruising along comfortably, peacefully, and it's holding the cruise. So now I can put brake again. I can either pull hand brake, or I can press the dial again, or I can apply the brake to exit from the cruise. So I now press the dial, and now it has exited from the cruise and it's coming back to 0, like so. One more quick demonstration of the dial plus and minus features. So here I first engage my cruise by clicking on the dial. It has started cruising again on a speed slightly above 50 kilometers per hour, and now to adjust the cruising speed, I can rotate the dial clockwise, and then the cruising speed climbs up to beyond 55 kilometers per hour. And when I rotate the dial anti-clockwise, the cruising speed comes back to below 55. The step size is 2 kilometers per hour as usual, and this is how I can adjust the cruising speed using the dial. So it has taken quite some time for us to come full circle, and there are a couple of decisions that we have taken on the usage, the behavior of the NexCruise. So it's taken quite some learnings on real experience with the NexCruise, and what should be there and what should not be there, and also on the groups some suggestions have been coming in. So the NexCruise right now is going to come to you with the behavior of the basic mode, which is what we just saw, the dial plus, dial minus, resume, cruise on, cruise off, the basic functionality as default. And the fancy functionality, or the additional functionality, so to say, is going to be enabled by some indirect method, so that you don't inadvertently enable those features, and unnecessary confusion should not happen. One more learning of how the NexCruise should behave, which has come by through our personal experience of using the NexCruise for some extended time, and also from the suggestions and your own comments from various groups. It is that the app cannot be used to control the NexCruise while you're driving, and the reasons are obvious, which we are not going to talk about anyway, but we don't want the app to control the NexCruise while we are driving. So we are going to use the app only for configuring the NexCruise, only for modifying its behavior when the car is stationary, when it's not moving. But the dial is going to be the primary and the only interface to manipulate the behavior of NexCruise when we are driving it. So this is how the NexCruise is going to come to you at the moment. Number one, only the basic functionality of NexCruise, and when I say basic, I count the resume functionality in it to you right now. And the second thing is that dial is going to be the primary interface of the NexCruise. So that was what we wanted to share with you from inside the cabin, and now let's go back to the workshop. Well, now welcome back to the lab, and let's now look at what all things that have happened. So first of all, the LED panel, as you have noticed in the last clip, from inside the cabin, this one is a 5 full color LED module. Well, this was what we had originally designed and planned to ship, which is a 3 color single color LED each. So obviously there was a lot of work that had needed to be done because of this, and so the NexCruise electronics itself has undergone some change to support this particular LED panel. Next up, the installation experience of the NexCruise itself. It called for some more designs of the cables. So here we have, so this is the main thing that actually needed to be done, that got done in this duration. It is basically an extension cable which connects to the ECU port and then brings out that port to some distance away, so that we can install the NexCruise unit under the dash and not right at the ECU connector point. So that now what really happened was that this male connector, so this male connector could not be found anywhere in the world. so we had to make it ourselves. Now with the capability with us to make the male connector, we can now also produce the bypass cable. The bypass cable is used when you want to bypass the NexCruise by hardware, and you're going to find it really useful. Next important piece of the work was the NexCruise firmware itself. It has got quite a few modules added to it, specifically the LED panel module. So basically it can now show a lot of information which is very useful when you are using the NexCruise, and sometimes if you call us for help, we are going to ask you what colors are being shown on the panel. So all of that technology, that capability in the software is now added, and for example, it can show you various kinds of errors in case the NexCruise is not functioning the way it should. It displays the exact error, the reason why it is not functioning on the LED panel, coded with colors. So basically that is going to be really helpful when the product scales and when these units are there out in your hands. So that piece of software is done. Next very important piece of the software is the software security, on which we have worked, and now it is not possible to hack the NexCruise and make it do unintended work, because going forward, as technology permeates each and every device like our cars, the security is going to be very, very important, and it is very important that outsiders are not able to put their software in the hardware and then make it behave the way we don't want it to behave like. So for that, we have used the same security that is used in financial transactions, that is the SSL encryption, and that is now there in the NexCruise, and it keeps the software 100% secure and 100% unhackable. Then, as pleasant byproducts, we now have the color of the NexCruise. You might have noticed it already on the box. It now looks much more appealing and you'll love to see it. And of course we have the piano black finish on the dial plate. Friends, let's now talk about an interesting point which also happens to be the highlight of this video. We all know that 1 plus 1 is equal to 2, but anybody who's an expert at anything can tell 100 different ways why 1 plus 1 will not always be equal to 2 under whatever practical situations. Well, with our background in electronics, we had this hitch or this understanding that in a very, very improbable scenario, NexCruise might not behave the way it should, and it has got to do with something with it being drawing power from the same source which is also powering the wipers, the headlights, and the every other thing in the car, and it basically introduces certain disturbances in the whole circuit which might have affected the NexCruise and onwards to other aspects of the car. Well, in the lab or in the development environment, such improbabilities can be lived with, but when we take this and scale it up in a production environment, it suddenly becomes a reality. So if the improbability is 1 in 1,000, then it translates to one individual suffering that improbability in 1,000 shipments, and we really cannot let this happen. We knew that there is this possibility. We have worked on it in these 2 months. We have fixed it. We have come up with this add-on solution which is now going into the NexCruise hardware on top of what was already there, and we have also filed a patent on this. So basically now there are 2 patents on top of NexCruise. We are going to speak more about it in detail once the patent reaches a certain stage. But now effectively what this has done is made the NexCruise a fortress. It is now there is no possible way things can go wrong because of NexCruise, and now whatever happens in the rest of the car, NexCruise stays a fortress and it keeps things working the way it should, and it is basically an electron exchange. So now you would appreciate why we had to recall why we had to take these 2 months away and back to the drawing board. Given the way people reacted very strongly, even for software bugs, which were very easily fixable, I just couldn't imagine how exactly will that single person in 1000 react in case this thing showed up randomly in somebody's car. It would simply bring the whole AHA experience down. So it has to be people above profits, and so we did what we did. And now we are ahead of all this. We were waiting to share this with you only after we have solidly fixed it all, filed the patent, and make it perfectly rock solid, tested it, everything. And the good thing is all of this has already happened. And now the NexCruise that is coming to you is the best on the face of this planet Earth. Okay, let's talk about the 31st October event in brief. How exactly the units behaved in the people's cars, what was their feedback, and are they still using it, all of that. Well, if you ask me, for a product launch, the 31st event overall thing was reasonably okay. It could have been pulled off, but the only reason we didn't go ahead beyond that on the same track was this single hardware thing that we wanted to address, which we just talked about in the last section. But beyond that, the issues that people faced, like over acceleration and all, were essentially fixable by software. Well, that said, speaking of our own expectation as the AHA team, how did it go and what could have been better? Let me just walk you through that. Number one, the management of the event itself, the quality of the space and all that. So I think AHA team did a reasonably good job at receiving the people, hosting them, and making sure that they are well received and well welcomed at the place. Then second part about the installation experience, which was we planned it to be half an hour all in all, but we took something like 4 hours to 5 hours maybe. We actually thought that the unit will be directly connected to the VCU port like this, and when in our own car it seemed perfectly fine, but when we did it many times in 15 different cars, we ended up taking a lot more time than we thought we will. Now we have this extension cable, and with this extension cable in place, the access becomes really easy, like so. And see, the unit can now sit very nicely under this dashboard place where the original neat unit used to be, and this solves the whole problem very elegantly. And now the installation time problem also is fixed. So of course a lot has to be done, but well, people were very patient, and thanks to everyone who was there, and you were really helpful, and it is like a blessing having you in my life. And that thing. And then one more reason was that we wanted the event to start in the morning, but actually we were receiving people all the way till the afternoon. But then so I was delaying the launch all the time because I was waiting for more people to show up. But then the lesson for me is that I need to start the event on time, no matter whoever or however many people have showed up or not. So that was one thing definitely that I've learned. And then speaking of this device itself, the experience with the device itself, it was not great. Most of it was very easily fixable, and with more exposure, with more inputs, we could easily address each and every point, and by the way, which we have already addressed right now. So this time we actually took our very sweet time to design the firmware, to rewrite it, to make it modular, make it secure, make it very powerful and expressive. And it is personally we are very happy about the job that we have done, and final judge are you people anyway. Now speaking about the experience that the people had once the devices were installed in people's cars after the 31st of October. Well, okay, we did recall the devices, we did tell them to remove the devices, but since it was the Diwali week immediately after the event, so we could not actually go to people to help them remove it and to collect it back till maybe 2 to 3 weeks after the event. And till that time, most of the users were actually using the device. So the device was of course working all right, and it also gave us the confidence that the probability of things going wrong was only that, it was just a probability, and anyway we have fixed that, so now we are at least complete about ourselves. But then the device itself worked all right, and whatever issues like rapid acceleration and all was easily fixable by software. But now that we have fixed it here and given the software the time it needed to be tested, but all in all, for a new product, the event I would say went reasonably well, and it could have been better, and we are very hopeful that now it is going to be much better anyway, now that we have seen and learned everything. And well, let me just conclude this talk by thanking everyone who came there, and to all of you who are there with us remotely and express your full support, unconditional support each and every time. Believe us, this is the only reason we are able to function, and this product is even possible to make. So let's conclude this video by speaking about what happens next, when are you getting your units, and what are the plans. So in a nutshell, we are now going to use the upcoming week to discuss things with the NEET members, and to make sure that we have the complete list of things and we have addressed each and everything together. And at the same time, we are going to work on the packaging, like the labels and everything, and then after that the product is ready to be delivered. So hopefully within next week we are going to share a video with you talking about the delivery plans and the logistics and everything else that happens next. So till then, thanks for being with us all the time there. Your support means everything, as I shared from the bottom of my heart. Thanks from Team AHA to you, and stay tuned. Goodbye from us.